Let's just learn the commandments here of this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is parshat Tzav, called Tzav. Tzav et Bnei Yisrael. And there are 18 commandments. So here's a book which is called Mitzvot HaShem. Mitzvot HaShem. I don't think it's Mitzvot HaShem. Maybe it is. Maybe it's Mitzvot HaShem. Let's see. Mitzvot HaShem. I don't know if it's Mitzvot HaShem or Mitzvot. Okay. Maybe Mitzvot HaShem. Could be. Here's in Russian. All right. So let's call it Mitzvot HaShem then. But the commandments of God. So here it is, a list of all the 613 commandments as they appear in the Torah, according to the Rambam, according to Maimonides. So in this week's Torah portion, we'll see that there are 18 commandments. Let's see where we get this here. So some of them, most of them are only relevant to the Holy Temple, but we'll learn them anyway, because the Holy Temple is going to be rebuilt. And not only that, it's part of the Torah. The Torah is eternal. And in learning the Torah, even though it might not be practical, like we're learning the Gemara, the Talmud, the Shkalim now. We don't give Shkalim in the Holy Temple. And in Yabama, it's a whole big tractate called Yabama. Now that there's basically we don't do that commandment either. But because it's the will and the wisdom of God, so we learn it because it is eternal. And that sometimes it is manifested in the world and sometimes not. That's a different story. Okay, here we go. There are, in this week's Torah portion, 9 positive commandments and 9 prohibitions. Here's the first positive commandment: to do Trumat HaDeshen, Maharimat HaDeshen Me'al HaMizbeach, every day. What does it mean? The Kohen, this is at the end of the day. There's all these ashes from the sacrifices that were made. So the Kohen, at the end of the day, he immerses himself in a mikvah, puts on the priestly garments, right? Other garments, not the ones that he was when he was working the temple. In other words, less valuable. And then he washes his hands and his feet, like we learned before from the laver. And he takes a big pan of silver, goes up to the top of the altar, and he moves all of the ashes away as much as he can. And he tries to make sure that they burn up as much as the sacrifice as he can. And then he takes all of these ashes that fell on the floor from the far away from the ramp, and every day he takes them out of the temple. Where does he take it? It says in the morning, and on the holidays is a little bit earlier, so basically the altar is free of all of these ashes. This is in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Only in the Kohanim do it. First positive commandment. Second commandment: there has to be constantly a fire burning on the altar. Sometimes you go into a synagogue and you see that there's a continual light, Eish Tamid. Well, that's from this. Eish Tamid Tukan al Mizbeach, and there should be a constant fire burning on the altar all the time. The outer altar we're talking about. Even though that fire came from heaven and it ate up the sacrifices, it was a miracle. That fire came in the shape of a lion and ate up the sacrifice, but nevertheless, we had to bring our own fire every morning. There would be one big, group of, one big fire on the altar from wood. and the Kohen would put wood in it, and it's also the Kohen also he would bring 2 pieces of wood, also together with the constant offering in the morning, and he would bring 2 more in the evening. There were 3 fires on the altar. I want to call it bonfires. I heard the word bonfire is not was used in term for some sort of a French word for idolatry. They use it for. Anyway, there were really 3 altars. If you remember we had this picture. Let's see, maybe we can find the picture, huh? Let's see if we can find it. Here. Here. We'll get a picture. Can you see this picture? We'll see. We'll see here. 3 fires. Okay, very aggravating. So for some reason, my computer is not following my orders. Here it is. See, there's 3. You can see 3 fires that are here, and they put the ashes also in the center. But there would also be pieces on the main fire that was here, that would be used for the burning the sacrifices. One would be used to take into the inner altar for the incense. Okay, so there were 3 fires that were going. That's what I wanted to show you. So it's a positive commandment. There must be a fire going there all the time. They would bring wood, and they would make sure that there was fire going on. Where do these 3 come from? As the first one, it says there were 3. One of them was the big one that was on, like I pointed out to you, on the here. This is the east side. As you came in, this is the east side. Right, here's where the Holy of Holies was. Holy of Holies was there. And when you came into the Holy Temple, this was to your left. So, and this was west, pointing this way. This was west. And this is east. You came in from the eastern side of the Holy Temple, the eastern side, and you're walking toward the west. The Mishka, the Holy and the Holy of Holies was over here. So this is where the first one was. The first fire. And the other one was that they took for the Ketoret. That was the second one that was here on the west side, on the south side. South side. This is over here is where the sacrifices were done. That's the north side, south side. And the third one was and the third one, that was just that there always should be a fire there. That should always be going. Then you can put it anywhere you want to on the altar, but you had to make fire. That was where you had to make sure that there was a fire from. That's where the fire, that was like the pilot light fire. It was always sure that the fire was always going. Next commandment, negative commandment. It's forbidden to extinguish this fire, like it says, lo tichbeh, a person that puts out the fire. In fact, a person that not just puts out all the fire, just one coal. If you extinguish one coal, even if you take it down from the altar and you put it out, it is punishable by lashes. We're talking about the fire that's in these offering fires here on the altar, not the fire that's on the menorah. The fire that's on that's in a frying pan. If it's in one of those pans, let's take it or in the menorah. That's even if you're exempt, you're not allowed to put it out. But if you do put it out, there's no punishment. Positive commandment: the Kohanim should eat the meal offerings. What's left over of the meal offerings? The meal offerings, we didn't learn about them. We learned about them, but we didn't actually learn any details about them. There were 4 different types of meal offerings in general, and 2 of them were made in like a sort of a frying pan, and 2 of them were actually 2 of them were made in a frying pan, and 2 of them, those 2 were really sort of the same thing, and then 2 of them were baked in the oven, and 1 was just flour with oil in it. And when they were, only 1 handful would be offered on in the fire. So you would bring a whole loaves of bread or pieces of bread or whatever that if you made it, or this whole bowl of a mincha offering, and only 1 small amount would be offered in the fire. That was called the kamitza. And the whole rest would be eaten by the Kohanim. So there was a positive commandment to eat it. So let's see, how many commandments do we have up to now that we've done? We have 1, this taking out the deshen, the ashes, positive commandment, that there should be a constant fire going, another positive commandment. That's 2, there's 18 altogether. Have 1 negative commandment, not to put out the fire, to extinguish the fire, or even one of the coals. And that's a negative commandment. Here we have another positive commandment, that the Kohanim have to eat the remainders of the bread offerings that were brought. And there's a negative commandment. Don't let any of these offerings, the bread offerings, become chametz. It's forbidden to bring chametz into the holy temple, except for the Thanksgiving offering and the offering for Shavuot. But in general, it's forbidden to put any chametz in there. You have to watch out. And some of the bread, like the face bread, it was very thick, but nevertheless, it did not rise. It seems that the same way in the time of the temple, they used to matzah on Passover used to be very soft and big, but it was still matzah. I think the Yemenites, even to this day, they have some sort of matzah like that. Positive commandment that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, every day he had to bring a bread offering, a half of an eighth of matzahs v'boker. He had to bring a meal offering every single day. Right, he would take this and he would put it into hot boiling water that would sort of cook it, and it would make it into what's called six breads. This the Kohen had to bring every day, half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. Kohen Gadol had to bring a bread offering every morning and every evening. Not before the evening. There was nothing in the actual evening. A negative commandment: no one can eat this offering of the Kohen. Like it says, it has to be totally burned on the altar. Usually, like we said before, the bread offerings, a part was taken, one handful was taken, and that was burned, and the rest was eaten. But this one, the offering, the twice daily offering of the Kohen, the bread offering, the meal offering, was not eaten. It was totally burned up. Next commandment: to do what's called the chatat offering. Chatat offering. It's made, the chatat offering, this is from what's called the sin offering. A person that did a sin by accident or in ignorance, as he would bring this offering called the chatat offering. And here it tells the details of how it's made, very exact details. negative commandment. Don't eat from the inner chatat, or all the chatat that the blood is brought in the Ohel Moed. You're not allowed to eat. You have to totally burn it up. This is one of these chatas that are done on the inside. On the inside, usually they're burned on the outside altar, but the ox that is brought, the ox and the goat that is brought on Yom Kippur, and the ox which is on the anointed Kohen, etc. Anyway, there are some of them which you're not allowed to eat, that they must be burned totally in the Mizbeach. Usually the sacrifices were eaten, part of them at least were eaten. It's called the Imurim. They were eaten, parts of them were eaten by the Kohanim. And sometimes there were sacrifices like the Shlomim, we'll learn about that were eaten by the owners also. Part was eaten by the owners. We learned about that last week. Positive commandment to make what's an asham offering. An asham offering, there's only like 5 sins that this is brought from, and they're very strange sins. The first, the one that's more common is if that a person is entrusted something, and he lies and says it got stolen, and he made an oath, but it really was not. And that's one of the examples. There's also what's called an asham talui. An asham talui means that a person doesn't know if he did a sin or not. There was 2 pieces of meat. One was kosher, the other one was not. And he ate one of the pieces, and the other piece got taken away by a dog. And someone came and said, "Hey, where's my treif meat that I put here for my dog?" He said, "What do you mean treif meat? There was 2 pieces of meat. I ate one of them." I said, "Oh, wow, you ate one of them." I mean, I only put one down here. And the Jew says, "Yeah, I also put one down here. It looks like I forgot which one it was. I thought I put down 2. Well, now the Jew doesn't know what he ate. Did he eat kosher or did he not eat kosher? That's called an asham talui. It's a doubtful offering. That's an asham. In any case, here it tells all the details of what this asham offering is. We talk about this in the prayers right before. It's called the korbanos that we say before we pray in the morning. And if you want to, I'll even give you a list of what they are. Here. Here. I haven't got it in my siddur. Here it is. There's what the asham gazelos, asham meilos, asham shivcha charufa, asham nazir, asham matzura, asham talai. Okay, the asham talai I just explained is if you don't know if you did a sin or not. Asham matzura is talking about a person when he finishes a person that had, and that they translate in English leprosy, and it's a disease that's brought about by speaking negative things about people. So that's called, when a person finishes that, then he brings an offering, a matzora. Also a nazir, a person that makes an oath that he's never going to drink wine, and he's going to grow his hair long. He says he's going to be a nazir. When he finishes that vow, let's say he does it for 30 days or for more, then when he finishes, then he has to bring an offering that's called an asham nazir. And it said asham meilos is if a person misused things from the holy temple by accident, then he has to bring. Okay, so that explains, that's called an asham offering. You have to make the korban. Now we have to make another commandment is the korban shlomim. The shlomim, this is what I talked about before. There's 4 types of shlomim. There's the shlomim, which is brought in the tzibur. by the whole congregation when they give thanks. Or there's two offerings, which are two sheep, which are brought in the holiday of Shavuot. That's also shlomim. Then there's three types of individual shlomim. It says if a person comes across a toda, whatever comes across the sea, and one is a shlomim that you don't bring any bread with. Two of them are shlomim that have bread with them, etc. And these are all the details of this. But the shlomim, like I said, that's the toda, the Thanksgiving offering. That's for a person that went across the sea, or he was was very sick and he got better, he got out of prison. Says that person, after when he gets out, he makes a Thanksgiving offering, and this is one of the only offerings where they bring chametz. 10 loaves of chametz are brought from into the. You bring 40 loaves altogether, 4 different types, 10 of each type, but one of those types is also chametz. So chametz. All the rest is matzah, like I said before. Here's 2 more commandments. A negative commandment: you're not allowed to leave over any of the sacrifices longer than their appointed time. And each has an appointed time. Sometimes it's a day and a half, 2 days, 2.5. According to that time, as soon as it's finished, you have to burn it. You're not allowed to leave it over. That's called nosar. And nosar, which is left over, if it's eaten, it's a big sin. There's a positive, that's the negative commandment, don't leave it over. The positive commandment is to burn it. Be'esh tisaref. We're going to learn in a second about pigol. Okay, nosar means that you left the offering that was supposed to be eaten, you left it, and wasn't eaten. It was that meat is called nosar, left over, and it's forbidden to eat. You must burn it. Then there's what's going to be called pigol, and we're going to learn about pigol in a moment. That's if the Kohen at the time, or whoever slaughters the animal, if he has the thought that he's going to eat it in the wrong time. So let's see. Also, this is also part of this is also any sacrifices which become disqualified. They have to be burned. For instance, if it's slaughtered improperly, you have to burn it in the daytime, and you can't leave it afterwards. If you leave it afterwards, it is considered to be a sin. Negative commandment: don't eat pigol. Like it says, don't eat pigol. What was pigol? Like I just finished saying, pigol means that when it was slaughtered, the one who slaughtered it had a thought that he would eat it in the wrong time. The punishment is very severe. It's being cut off from heaven. If he does it by accident, then it's what's called he has to bring a chatat, like we learned before. Okay, here he explains exactly what is pigol, what type of thoughts that the one who slaughters it, what exactly type of thoughts disqualify this sacrifice. This is talked about also in Zvachim and other places. Of course, this is not nowadays. This is only a time when there's a holy temple, but there will be soon. Holy temple. A negative commandment. Now, the negative commandment here is not to eat it. Right? If it was slaughtered at the wrong time, you're not allowed to eat it. So therefore, this is a negative commandment. It's a prohibition for men and women, because women also ate from the sacrifices. They didn't slaughter them, though. It's a negative commandment not to eat sanctified meat that became impure. If it touched the dead body, or if a person who had touched the dead body touched it, or a lot of laws involving tuma and tahara, defilement, ritual defilement in the temple. Right? If there are certain dead animals, if a person touched a nevela, let's say an animal that died on its own, and that touched one of the sacrifices, that also makes that tummy, and it is forbidden. It has to be burned immediately, but it's forbidden to eat. And if one who eats one kazayas of it, the punishment is lashes. Positive commandment. It's a positive commandment to burn any sacrificial meat that becomes impure. So here's the prohibition to eat it. It's forbidden to eat. And here it is a positive commandment. Yes, you must burn it. This meat that has become defiled by touching something impure. A negative commandment, not to eat chaylev. It's a negative commandment. It is forbidden to eat the fats that are on certain parts. It's not regular fat. Fat is permissible, but there's certain sticky fats that are found on the like on the stomach, on the kidneys, and on the kidneys, on the on the spleen. These strands of fat are forbidden. You're not allowed to eat it. Also, there's what's called the aliyah, the chaylev, and there's some chaylevs that are permissible. Notably, the one chaylev that's permissible are kosher animals that cannot be sacrificed in the temple, namely like deer, antelope. Those are called chayas, and their chaylev is permissible. A negative commandment not to eat blood. It is forbidden to eat blood. Like it says, you're not called blood cannot be eaten. Anyone who eats blood, it is forbidden. This is only blood that comes out of the meat. While the blood is still in the meat, it is permissible to eat it if you eat it raw. If it moves around, anyway, it's complicated laws a little bit, but nevertheless, in general, it is forbidden to eat blood. Forbidden to eat blood and forbidden to eat the chaylev, the sticky fat, unusual fat that's on the stomach or whatever, in a sheep, a cow, or a goat. Forbidden. But all blood is forbidden. All blood is forbidden if it comes from an animal. But blood that or a bird, blood that comes from a fish is permissible to eat. But it doesn't look good. So it's not. It should be drunk. If you want to drink it for whatever reason, you might want to do a thing like that. It says you should put scales in it to make sure everybody knows that it's not. But blood is forbidden to eat, and this is also forbidden to eat. So what really have we learned that's really relevant to us now until the Holy Temple is built? Not to eat blood, not to eat this chaylev. It's still forbidden today, just like it was back then. These other commandments about pigol, noisar, it have to be burned. It's forbidden to eat. This is not relevant now. Holy things that have been defiled, you cannot eat them and you must burn them. Also not relevant now. So to make a shlomim offering and whatever, you're not allowed to leave over the meat over the time. You're not allowed to eat anything which is left over the time. Also not relevant now. So far all we have that's relevant to us now is the not to eat chaylev and not to eat blood. Make the asham offering, we said. You have to eat the chatat offering. Is forbidden to eat it from the inner chatat offering. The positive commandment to make this korban chatat, what is needed for. And the manachos, all of these are relevant to the holy temple. You can't put out the fire which is on the altar, and also the fire has to be burning constantly. Certainly that's not relevant to us now. This asham sacrifice to remove the ashes from the altar, also not relevant to us now. So from this Torah portion, what's really relevant to us now is the not to eat blood. So I went a bit too far. Not to eat blood and not to eat chaylev. That's one of the reasons why it's so important that we have to have the Holy Temple, because then you can do the commandments. And that's one of the things that's going to bring, we've talked about this a lot of times, all the Jews back to Israel. It says, first of all, the Mashiach will build a temple and he'll convince all the Jews of the wondrousness of doing the commandments. And you can't do them without the temple. So therefore the Mashiach will build the temple first, and that will draw all the Jews from all over the world to the commandments that can be done only in the temple and also only in Israel. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, hope to see you tomorrow at 8:15. Shalom uvracha.